Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Recruiters with No Limits. Always live and never scripted. I'm here with my sidekick, John Ruffini. What's up, John?
Hello, sir. How are you, Richard?
Real good. And our guest today, Amy Bingham. Amy,
hey, everybody. It's going well. Thanks so much for inviting me. This is going to be fun.
Bingham Consulting, right? Consulting professionals. I mean, she's got some great insight today. So we're just going to start off with deep diving into this, John. What do you think?
I like it. Let's learn a little bit about Amy and what she does, because I'm excited, and people are going to realize that when they look for people that have a pulse on the market, Amy's one of those people.
Well, thanks, John. I really appreciate that. You know, staffing gets in our blood, right? So I've been in this business for, 28 years now, but I've been consulting to small to mid-sized staffing firms for the last 15. So, you amass a bunch of knowledge. I mean, I certainly hope I teach people things, but I also learn from my clients. And what's interesting is it's almost impossible not to draw commonalities between staffing firms that are high growth and what they're doing, and what those common denominators are relative to those that are not. So that's been really fun to take that knowledge, and just when I get calls from people who say, hey, help us build value in our firm. It may be strategy, it may be operational work, it may be some leadership coaching, maybe any number of things, but it's just fun to be a part of that. There are so many small to mid-sized staffing companies that need help.
Boy, when a firm says help us add value to our firm, that's such a broad ask. do you ever go in and find yourself thinking, man, I don't know where to start. This is all messed up.
On occasion, yeah. Usually there's one or two glaring things. I break everything down in my logical brain into those three big categories: people, process, and technology. And so, it's usually something major, or maybe a bunch of minor things that they just need to tweak. The calls that are really fun to get are from the firms that are already growing above market and want to up their game.
They want to take it kind of to that next level, and they're looking for you to guide them as to what's missing, or what can they enhance or insert to help them get there.
Exactly. Yep.
Exactly. Hey, Amy, in the 28 years that you've been doing this, it doesn't look like you've been in it 28 years, but what are you seeing different now than 28 years ago?
Yeah, so much of this, I think what doesn't change is the relationship piece to the business, the art of recruiting. People buy from people. They don't buy from companies. So I think to the degree that we're high touch, right? Some of that hasn't changed. What has changed is how we bring the customer and the candidate to us. And the digitization of staffing is well underway, as we all know. Many of us are automating anything redundant so that our teams can operate in that artful space where, all right, bring a candidate to me, perhaps through technology. Now I've got somebody in front of me. Now it's up to me to ensure that that piece hasn't changed. What's changed really is the technology.
Makes sense. And that's part of the evolution. I like what you say. I like that you said that, because it always reaffirms what I always believe in, that the fundamentals of our business don't change, but how we do it, we have to adapt. And to your point, the technology is part of that adaptation. You've got to embrace change, and you've got to adapt to changing opportunities and ways to generate candidates and improve your business. But the underlying way of recruiting, to your point, the art of recruiting, that hasn't changed a whole lot, which is always good to see, because that interaction, that relationship-based concept of recruiting, for those that last in the business as long as we have, we understand and appreciate that for sure.
Right.
Amy, I got to ask you real quick here. Sorry, John.
No, you're good.
So post-pandemic, is companies calling you all the time now and hit the panic button? You're like, I need help.
They need help figuring out how to drive more candidate flow to their offices. I mean, that's the $64 million question. How do I cast a wider net so I can fulfill on these orders? Most staffing firms right now have far more orders than they can fill. We're employers, just like any other organization. You drive around, you see we're hiring signs everywhere. I mean, the good news, it's really an interesting challenge for us. The good news is there's high demand for our services. And the not so great news is we're having the same challenges finding people that our clients are having. And so it's painful, obviously, if you're a business owner, a staffing firm owner, and you see all this potential revenue on the board that can't get filled. So we've got to get creative in terms of figuring out why the talent isn't there. We know there are some labor shortages due to skills in particular, but when the stimulus ended, we all, I think, expected this mass influx of candidates into our office, which did not materialize.
Surprised everybody.
Not at all.
It did. So it suggests that, and I've been doing a lot of reading about this lately, it really does suggest that there's been some kind of seismic shift in the way people are viewing work. Not unlike, other big challenges in history. So some of this is just the pandemic had people step back, rethink their lives. We had, we saw baby boomers retiring earlier. We saw Gen X leaving jobs to start businesses, and millennials and Gen Z just entering the workforce. We're trying to figure them out, right? So I think people really made some conscious choices, and that's caused a mass exodus, really, from the workforce. So the challenge now is, how do we bring them back in, right? What do we do to make it attractive to work for our firm, for any business?
And so that mass exodus, and for people who are unfamiliar, that's where that term, the Great Resignation, is kind of originating. And you're right. The challenge is, what do we do to get them back? And people, I believe, and you made reference to this, the pandemic made people rethink their lives, and they're very much empowering themselves to say, you know what, I just don't want any job. I'm willing to hold out and wait and either find the right job for myself or go into business for myself and make a go of it. But there's less of a dependency on corporate America and more on a dependency on, hey, I'm going to follow my wants and dreams. Now, some may argue that the stimulus enabled that a little bit too much. And we'll see what happens in the next 6, 8, 12, 18 months. But I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so absolutely agree. It's interesting. I was doing some reading, an economist, and I'm just going to put my glasses on here because I'm going to read. An economist recently was studying this, and she did some historical look back and said, personal experiences of economic outcomes, and in this case, we mean the pandemic, but from global financial crises to individual job losses, can shape individual beliefs, risk attitudes, and choices for years to come. So she goes on to say that, individuals act, research shows that individuals act as if past outcomes that they experienced were overly likely to occur again, even if they're fully informed about the actual likelihood. So she used an example of the Great Depression. Those who lived through I don't mean the Great Recession, I mean the Great Depression back in the 30s. Those who lived through that were reluctant later in life to invest in the stock market because they were just fearful of that crash happening over and over. It created such a lasting fear. And she talks about the neural pathways in the brain and how big events in life like this can really cause major and permanent shifts in the way people think. That is really intriguing. I mean, we had 43 million people leave the workforce last month, or in August, I think.
Yeah.
Almost the highest percent ever, almost 3% of the workforce. And that's crazy. There's something going on here beyond skill shortages. It goes far deeper than that.
And you know what, Amy? And I think it comes into that well-being, mental health. We have to take care of that first. That's a big issue these days.
Totally agree.
I'm talking a lot about it with my clients. I mean, it's a subject we haven't, as we all know, historically talked about. But yeah, go ahead.
No, I was
Go
going
ahead,
to say,
John.
what I don't know if you're seeing this with some of your clients, but part of that mental health is being impacted because of there's a shortage in most everybody's workforce. Those that are on board are being called upon to do more, and there's more pressure, more workload. They're sometimes making mistakes that they never used to make because they are so overworked, and the pressure's on, go, 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 faster, 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 more, more, more. So, you get people that are tenured in the business that are now all of a sudden, making some mistakes or shortcuts that they never used to before because they're feeling the pressure to do so, which adds more mental health because now they're making their jobs harder. It's just a domino effect that this could end up impacting. Again, I don't think we've seen nearly the last of the impact.
No, I think it's going to persist. So the question is, what do we do as employers, and what do we coach our clients to do to retain people? I mean, you cannot. I'm telling my clients right now, you cannot afford to lose someone. So let's look at your model. I've had clients push back on hybrid models and insist everybody be in the office. And what happens when they announce that? There's panic because the employees are resisting in a major way. So they're concerned about turnover. In one instance, I had someone purchase a building. So a client had purchased a building in the last couple of years. And so they were pretty insistent that people come back to the office. They invested in this building. And I had to say, you know what? It's not your employees' fault, sadly, that you bought a building. I mean, the world of work is changing. And if you don't adapt, you're going to have mass exodus potentially. And your business is going to crash. So maybe the question should be, how do we get out of the building, right? So these are not, by the way, I always remind people, you guys aren't always paying me to give you the good news, right? So my clients know that I'm lovingly direct with them, but it's all in their best interest, right? So if you're forcing your own agenda on your employees today, whatever that agenda may be, maybe it's that, old school thinking, I've got to have eyes on them to know that they're working. And the reality is, studies show people were more productive working remotely than they were in the office because of no distractions and so on and so forth. So employers today have to be very flexible, and I think they got to get out in front of some serious talent development initiatives. And what makes young people stay is learning new things. So when you think about the recruiter desk, I mean, it's pretty, same old every day. We know that that's a high churn job.
Right.
How do we make that more fun? How do we help our recruiters grow their careers, even if there's nowhere necessarily in leadership to go? But I'm talking about things like start as a sourcer, then they're a junior recruiter, then they're recruiter,
an
senior
actual path.
recruiter, yes, and show them that career path, and then give them special projects. Like one of my clients recently, she wanted to have a retreat and take her entire team, which I thought was fabulous. It was a great time to do that. They were careful with COVID and everything, but she discovered that someone on her team had an affinity for planning events. She said, why don't you take it and run with it?
Oh, that's awesome.
And I spoke at their retreat. So this woman did a fabulous job planning it. And, my client, the owner, didn't have to do it. But what do you think has come out of that, right? She has now been given an opportunity to work new muscles, this employee, and it increases loyalty to the owner. And so we've got to think beyond the traditional things that we do. We can throw money at people all day, and we need to make sure that our salaries are above market competitive to retain talent, but it's about other things too.
You're so right on that, Amy. Even the Gen Zs I talk to all the time, flexibility. They want that flexibility. I'm going to throw something up real quick, guys. Look at some of this. This is some of the stuff we see on the internet. I mean, no childcare, fear COVID, time with family, values. That's what the employees are asking for now. So as a company owner, you got to fulfill this.
So I heard, we were all at Staffing World not too long ago, and I heard two schools of thought kind of being talked about. One of which was, hey, this is the new world of work. And as employers, we've got to be open-minded, flexible. We've got to figure out how to make this hybrid situation work. I heard other people saying, you know what, this is going to be a blip in the radar. In 18 months, everybody's going to be back in the office again. What are your thoughts?
Oh boy, crystal ball question, right?
Here we go.
I don't think so. I think it's a change in the way, and the reason for this is technology. We were all forced to learn how to do what the three of us are doing right now. Speak on video. By the way, I was using, this is a conscious choice on my part, but I was using Zoom in the entire year prior to the pandemic because I had a conscious, strategic initiative personally to travel a little bit less. So I thought, let me see if I can offer my services more affordably, cut down on travel. I'm traveling for 13 years at that point. And I found Zoom and I converted my engagements to Zoom. So, but it took some doing, right? And some new learned behavior. But we know we can do that now. So why, again, technology is only going to get better. We can all work from anywhere. By the way, my clients that are in 100% virtual models, I mean, you want to talk about profitable? So I don't think it is, I think when people's leases are up, they're going to start looking really hard at their model and say, do I really need everybody in an office?
Yeah, either getting rid of their office or at least reducing it.
Or reducing it, yeah.
So Amy, how do you
co-working spaces,
right.
Amy, real quick, Amy, how do you talk to customers and your clients and adapt them? How does that happen overnight, or does it take time to tell them to change?
No, I think it takes time. And people shouldn't do something just because I said it or you said it, Richard, or you said it, John. They have to learn that there is risk associated with not changing the ways that you have always historically done things.
Boy, that's powerful.
Yes.
And so, in the case of my client that was trying to force everybody back into the office, I fully understood why. But she got such immediate pushback that it was a shock to her. And we had a conversation about it, and that's when I delivered the news that, when you really think this through, your real reason for this is because you invested in a building. But it's kind of like one of those too bad, so sad, maybe we sell the building, but we don't force something that we know isn't going to work and is going to cause turnover.
I still respect the fact that you're direct with your clients, and that's what everybody wants, right? We want transparency, we want honesty, and directness, because that person in that example that you gave, if they bought the building, okay, they're not thinking clearly. They're just looking at the bottom line and what it's going to cost to make up for that expense. And a lot of times they need someone to come from the outside and say, hey, after all I've looked at, you know what? You got to get out of your own way here. And I love what you said. It's not your employee's fault that you bought a building. That's great. But hey, who would have thought that we had a pandemic? And it's your choice now. Do you want to keep your people or do you want to keep the building?
Exactly.
Oh man. Hey, one thing I got to ask you, Amy, about this remote workplace. Do you see a lot of companies there just renting space too, instead of just working from home? Like, a place where they can actually go, but it's not their actual office.
Yes, the co-working business is going to explode. You want to get into a new business, go in and start a co-working location. So, the Regis obviously had been the 800-pound gorilla, but they're popping up everywhere in major cities now. And I have several clients that work out of co-working spaces part-time to get their teams together for meetings. So there is a gathering place, and that may be the happy medium. It's far more cost-effective. Some of them don't require you to sign leases. You can go month to month. So I think we're going to see more of that.
So if you want something a little bit more than a coffee shop to conduct a meeting,
right,
those can be a good utilization.
Yep. WeWork is one of them. Oh gosh,
Yep.
there's so many. They're
Right.
all over major cities now.
Exactly. We have a lot in Pittsburgh here, and just let you know, it's free coffee too. So look out.
Free coffee, sometimes
Yeah.
free meals, sometimes breakfast is out. I mean, it's crazy. So again, I think that business is going to go, I mean, bonkers. But again, the driver is technology. I mean, well, the driver of this change was pandemic. The pandemic, it's just forced everybody to figure it out. But now people know it's available to them.
You have to wonder, and I think we all know the answer to this, if COVID doesn't come about, does any of this radical transformation take place? And unfortunately, probably not, because people are inherently resistant to change.
Change, yep.
So, out of everything bad usually comes some good stuff. And we're seeing it right now. It's a matter of, we're in a transformational time right now across all industries. And I'm assuming, Amy, you're seeing this across all staffing industries, not just particular verticals, correct?
Oh, no, across the industry.
Wow. So what are some things, I'm going to shift gears mentally a little bit. So you have a good insight into what works, what doesn't work, how firms can get better, how they can get over the hump. What are some, I don't want to call them best practices, but what are some things that you're seeing in the marketplace that stand out with respect to high performing firms?
Automate what you can that is redundant. So you think about the recruiting life cycle, you've got the front end, bring the applicant to us for maybe programmatic advertising, get them into, the closer we can get to one-click apply, by the way, the better.
Yes.
Abandon rates are very high. People don't have a lot of patience. So if we've got a lengthy application process, we got to streamline that. But use technology, pre-screens, bots, etc., just in the early phases to get someone who's mostly vetted in front of a recruiter for an interview. And then the recruiter takes over. And then after post-placement on the back end, they're using tools like Sense or Herefish to keep, or text us, to keep an ongoing, dialogue via text message with their temps and contractors so that they redeploy and retain them.
Which is the critical measurement.
Yeah, I mean, we all remember the days where we had to remember. I remember running a report to look at end dates, to remember to call those temps and say, hey, Susie, we have another assignment for you. You're ending it. I mean, so that, think about the efficiency there. They're all about speed to market. And I'm in violent agreement with that. I mean, this is a highly fragmented, competitive industry. Sometimes, the first firm that gets the candidates submitted wins.
Mm-hmm.
So the faster you can operate and shorten that life cycle. On the sales side, it's similar. We want to shorten that sales life cycle using technology to do that, but also to be more effective. So those firms have they still have a target account strategy. They know who their ideal customer is. They know business, just as importantly, they know business they don't want. They don't roll over on price. There is no reason we should reduce our price in this kind of environment. And they know that. So, their message is, if you'd like to work with us, and here are all the reasons we're different, this is our price. And if they don't want to play, they'll let them go. There's another customer around the corner. Exactly. So it's a mindset of efficiency and effectiveness that is always constantly evolving.
I love that you talk about automation with respect to things that can be automated, freeing the recruiters up to actually do more recruiting. And I think some people get lost when they think, well, I don't want to automate, I want the high touch. But that's not what you're saying. You're saying, no, automate those tasks that can be automated to make it easier for the recruiter to actually do their job.
Exactly. So they can artfully convey why your staffing firm is different and why they should entrust their career to you. So you the recruiter first, and then the firm and its mission, values, culture. That's another thing I recommend people do right now. Go to your website and look at whatever you put on the website that talks about your mission, your vision, and your core cultural values, and see if that needs a refresh. Gen Z in particular really wants to be part of something bigger than themselves. Yep. So if your vision, mission, culture was designed by the executive team in a roundtable meeting, 10 years ago, let's do a refresh on that so we can attract that workforce.
That's interesting.
And then we start reeling them into our culture right away.
Mm-hmm. You're so right on that, Amy, because when I deal with the Gen Zs, because I'm with them all the time, that they want to be in the spotlight. They're the YouTube kind of people. They want to be number one all the time. And we got to adapt to that.
And when you talk about, like, not many people would think about, a company's going to revisit and recraft their core values or their mission statement or vision statement. Again, we're resistant to change. We're like, especially companies that have been around for a long time. It's like, this is who we are. This is who we always will be. It's okay to adapt. And if you can engage your employee base in the creation of those values and mission and vision statements, then you build buy-in right from the get-go and they feel more a part of it. It can only help your organization.
It's a great exercise to do with your team, and people will own what they help develop. They'll live it.
Right. And teams within teams, right? I've seen where, each department, I know it at the company where we work, my team has our own mission and vision statements that are in line with the corporate objectives, but it's down to our, what we have direct influence in. So I think not just at a macro level, but at a micro level within groups, it's also a great exercise within those teams.
Yeah, I think that's a great point, John, because every department manager, so to speak, has his or her own culture. The leader shapes the culture. So True. Yes, it should be, hopefully is, in line with the corporate vision. But you're gonna manage a little differently than I would manage and Richard would manage. So then that's what makes the world go round, right? So you engage people in being part of what you've created, and they sign up and say, I love this. By the way, I think that should include a lot of altruistic, community of charitable events and so on and so forth, because this is what's important to today's young worker in particular. It's important to all workers, I think, but especially to today's Gen Z just entering the workforce now, and even younger millennials as well.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
100%. Amy, I got to ask you for a forecast. So it's almost seasonal time for all these temp jobs for seasonal work. How are they going to find them? Do you have any insight on this?
Good luck. No, you see what the Targets and the Walmarts and the McDonald's and the Amazons are doing. They're just throwing money at people. Working in a project right now with a healthcare firm, actually not a staffing firm, a assisted living company that sought me out for my staffing experience. So working with them right now, I can tell you that doing some research, the only thing a CNA cares about is his or her hourly pay. That's it. Don't give me benefits, because I can go buy them if I need them. Sign-on bonuses are great, but it is the way that person typically lives is paycheck to paycheck, and it's about the money. So I do think, wage inflation, like it or not, is here. We're seeing that everywhere, and I think for staffing agencies, you've got to be very, very consultative with your clients around if they're wanting you to fill jobs, particularly in light industrial staffing. We're still seeing clients are calling us and asking us to fill jobs for $10 an hour, lower sometimes. Not going to happen.
No.
And if you cannot convince your customer, then you have to walk away, because you can't put recruiting resources on jobs you will not fill. That just doesn't make good business sense.
And the more you can back up that argument, if you will, with data, the better, because you need to be able to go to those companies and say, look, don't take my word for it. Your rates are not competitive with the market. Here's what others are paying. Sometimes you need, you can't just say, oh yeah, well, I'm a recruiter. I know the industry. I know the market. This is what I'm seeing. If you can bring hardcore data doesn't lie. And
no, I think you have to bring the data. Yes, you do. The wage analysis is a big piece of that. And they may not like the message, but no one likes no business owner likes to hear that you have to raise your pay rate by $5 an hour on your entry-level worker. It is what it is. Right now, I don't, because at the end of the day, the client, our client, has to deliver for their customer.
Right.
You're right.
So if they don't have the people, they can't, their business is going to suffer. And we're already seeing that, of course.
Well, with the light industrial, the restaurant industry shook everything up, right? I mean, you can go to McDonald's for $17 an hour. How are you going to be a CNC machinist for $14? It's like, holy cow.
Right.
It's nuts.
It's wild. I mean, it's absolutely wild. It's employees are in the driver's seat right now. How long that will last, again, crystal ball question.
And we're going to face that dichotomy, if you will, of, okay, so we need to attract the talent, but because we have to pay that talent more, might we be attracting less than we used to attract? So we'll have less people doing more of the work and inserting automation so we can afford the increased payroll. All these factors come into play, and it makes it much more complex.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It's like a surfboard. We're riding that wave together, guys.
That's right.
Wow. Hey, John.
No one knows what's coming next, right?
No. And if we did, it'd be no fun anyway.
No, it really would.
I'm not going to tell you. I love it. I'm excited about this. I'm going to be, this is like fun times in a way. You have to just ride it, enjoy it.
Richard is so all about positivity. I just love that in you. I love seeing your stuff on ASA Central.
Well, thank you so much.
You're always pumping people up, and that's really important in this business. People business is a tough business. We know that. You can screen the heck out of a candidate. You cannot predict what he or she is going to do at work. Nope. You just can't. And we've all got lots of stories around that. So it's a tough business, right? And so keeping people excited about it is thank you for that. Both of you comment a lot on ASA Central.
Well, thank you, Amy. And you know what? I don't even know what's going to come out of my mouth the next time I say something. So that's exciting too. Hey, Johnny,
I love it.
Any final thoughts on this episode, my man?
I can't thank Amy enough for sharing her knowledge with us. And the one thing that keeps ringing in my mind is when you said there is risk associated with not changing. And I think every business leader needs to pay attention to that if they want to be a sought after employer. There's so many engagement surveys going in and out on a daily basis to try and figure out, all right, are we a best place to work? Are we not a best place to work? The more that you can be in tune with your employees and embrace the fact that, hey, we may have to change the way we do things, I think the better. So you saying that that really hit home with me.
Yes.
Well, and you just summarized it beautifully, John. I mean, I think that's the headline and the punchline, right?
Got it. Hey, Amy, where can everybody reach you at?
Where can they what? I'm sorry?
Reach you at.
Reach me at. Go to my website or just link in with me, or it's A Bingham, my first initial and last name, ABingham at my last name again, BINGHAM, C is in consulting, P is in pros.com. A Bingham at binghamcp.com. Love to hear from you.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to leave it with these two little quotes here. You ready for this? The first one is, challenges equals change. We all got to change. And the final one, adapt equals achieve. Do them too. We're set.
I love it.
I love it. Well, thanks for the invite, guys.
Hey, Amy, thanks so much.
Thank you.
Hey, everybody. Great show. We'll see you next week in another episode. Take care, guys.
Take care.
Bye.